in the Holy of Holies. You know, I'd say there's one thing in there, but there's really not. There's at least two things in there. And you've got the Ark of the Covenant and you've got the mercy seat. And it's the mercy seat that actually sits on top of the Ark. Well, to cover both of those, we need a couple weeks to do it. Now, I started looking at, and you know, you don't have to write this down, but I started looking at some of the geometry of the tabernacle. And since I failed geometry, I'm an expert at this, what I'm going to tell you. But it just interesting. I don't think there's anything in the Bible that is by coincidence or just in there. When God gives you the dimensions of something, it means something greater than some tent they're casting out there in the wilderness. And so I'm just going to give you some square footage of some things. The entire court around the thing is 150 feet by 75 feet. And that's 11,250 square feet. Most people's yards are bigger than that courtyard. Some people's yards are a lot bigger than the courtyard, but 11,250 square feet. The tabernacle itself is 45 feet by 15 feet. You just multiply those and you get 675 square feet. I've got one room in our home. It's kind of like our den, bedroom, washroom. It's a combination of all three. And that one room is almost as big as this. So when I look at my room, I think, wow, this is about how big the tabernacle actually was. If I were to divide it off, I could have one. No, I mean, not that I would put one in. But so that's the tabernacle as a whole was 675 feet. But the holy place, which is where the furniture was that we talked about, all the furniture, was 30 feet by 15 feet. And that's 450 square feet. And that leaves the most holy place, which is 15 feet by 15 feet. And that's 225 square feet. So if you were to put squares down, you'd have 225 of them, 1 foot squares. That's the square footage inside. And that's not very much. Okay? Some of you might have walk-in closets bigger than that. But so this wasn't a huge thing because it had to be mobile. You know, if it had been too big, they'd have had a hard time carrying it around. Well, they could set this thing up, I imagine, within a day. Very easily. Maybe they could set it up within an hour. I don't know. Everything was made to be constructed. It's like going camping, and you know we got one of these tents now that you just take the legs and go like this, and it flops up, and you can have it up in about 30 seconds. And I'm talking about an 8 to 10 man tent. Well, this thing was made. God made it, gave them the design of it, the pattern of it, so they could get it up in a hurry. But now there's some other things here. I wanted to look at the areas that would talk about volume of footage, not just square feet. You know, you measure a carpet in a room, you measure the square feet, but then there's the volume of the room, every square or cubic square of space. And the tabernacle itself, because then you have to multiply 45 by 15 by 15, because it's 15 wide and 15 high, 15 feet. And that gives you 10,125 cubic feet. The holy place itself is 6,750, and the most holy is 3,375. You say, what does all that mean? I have no idea. All I know is that those measurements, whether it's in metric, whether it's in feet, whether it's in cubits, I think it means something. I don't know what it is. It may have something to do with how big our universe is. One thing I did think about was the different shapes. The courtyard is a rectangle. The altar is a square. The laver is a circle. Now you can prove that by a passage and where have I got it at? Thought I wrote it down here. 1 Kings 7, 23 and 26, where they talk about it being like the rim of a cup and that it's round, says it's round, okay? So you have a rectangle, a square, a circle, but then in the holy place, because we're dealing with the whole volume, you have a rectangular prism. It's called a rectangular prism. And the Holy of Holies is a cube. It is a perfect cube. It is 15 by 15 by 15. Now, I don't know about you, man, but those things aren't by accident. I don't know what they represent. You know, when you think about a cube, isn't that 4 squared? A cube is 4 square. Talk about New Jerusalem's 4 square. I don't know. You put a cube on its axis. Do you get 2 pyramids out of that? Or am I wrong about that?
The 3-sided pyramids and 4-sided pyramids. You get
2 4-sided pyramids. Okay. I don't know. Just some thoughts there. So I threw that out at you just to confuse you, and then we'll get into the rest of this. So inside that Holy of Holies is the Ark of the Covenant. That's where they were to place that. This is probably one of the, if there's ever a thing in the Old Testament, probably greater than Moses' staff or rod that he had, or even greater than the thing that Aaron had, his staff or his rod that blossomed and almonds and actually had fruit on it. But any of the things you can think back there, you know, Samson's jawbone of the ass. What's that? Okay. Like I said, I failed geometry, so I don't even think I took it. I looked at it and said, nah, I can't grasp that. But so this ark, what was I talking about just now? That's right. Huh? Oh, yeah. This probably stands out greater than anything back in the Old Testament. Problem was that they got attached to the thing. And one of the things says it cannot save. You got to remember that. When people talk about a church, when they talk about things, you know, holy things, it cannot save. God is the one that does the saving. And even though you've got this chest of drawers flying through the air, you know, messing with people, it's the presence of God inside the chest. It's not the wood or the gold or whatever, the studded features on it, you know, because that's what it looked like. It's just a little chest, a chest of drawers. Anyway, but they get. I mean, Eli, Hophni, and Phinehas. I mean, they thought this was their salvation. Get the ark, bring the ark. You know, get that piece of wood and let's have it save us. It sat there, did nothing while they got run over by the Philistines, I think it was, and killed Hophni and Phinehas. And then Eli finds out that they took the thing, which, you know, if this thing was so powerful, it would have stopped them from taking it, wouldn't it? They just hauled it off. Yeah. They just hauled it off. Eli finds out about it, falls backwards, breaks his neck because the ark of God was taken. He was so worried about the thing. Don't be worried about some little chest. If the presence of God is in that chest, they'll regret taking it. And they did. Man, it plagued them. It haunted them. It gave them something that nobody wants. Case of hemorrhoids. That's what hemorrhoids is. Brother, God knows how to smite you and smite you good. And so just remember that we're talking about a thing here, but it's a thing that God made his presence known. Now, you can't put God in a box, but he can make his presence known inside that box. Exodus 25, look at verse 10. Exodus 25, verse 10, they shall make an ark of shittim wood, 2 cubits and a half shall be the length thereof, a cubit and a half the breadth thereof, a cubit and a half the height thereof. Thou shalt overlay it with pure gold within and without. Shalt thou overlay it, and shalt make upon it a crown of gold round about. Thou shalt cast 4 rings of gold for it, put them in the 4 corners thereof, and the 2 rings shall be in the one side of it, and 2 rings in the other side of it. Thou shalt make stays of shittim wood, and overlay them with gold. And thou shalt put the stays into the rings by the sides of the ark, and the ark may be borne with it. So again, this thing's supposed to be mobile and carried around. But this got a little bit more prestige because they would have the ark go before them, which is, God said, you can do that. The ark can go before you, but it should have always been understood by anyone that it's the presence of God here, not something made of wood. The staves shall be in the rings of the ark, and they shall not be taken from it, and thou shalt put into the ark of the testimony, which I shall give thee. And we know what he put into the ark, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Here's the thing that most Christians miss. I missed it for years. Years I missed it. Is there two arks? There are two. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 10. Let's look at the first one. Deuteronomy 10, look at verse 1 to 5. At that time the Lord said unto me, hew thee 2 tables of stone, like unto the first, and come up unto me in the mount, and make thee an ark of wood. And I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest. Remember Moses coming down from the mount, sees them breaking all 10 commandments, by the way. So he throws down the law. Why? If they had read them, they'd have been guilty of them. I mean, without the knowledge of the law, Moses was smart. I mean, man had some wisdom. He said, I better break these now. They get to look on these things. They've broken the first through the 10th. And he says, I will write on the tables the words that were in the first tables, which thou breakest, and thou shalt put them in the ark. So he says, I want you to bring up this ark, or it's a wood chest, so we can put these tables of stone inside there. And I made an ark of shittim wood, and hewed 2 tables of stone like unto the first, and went up into the mount, having the 2 tables in mine hand. And he wrote on the table. So all he did was provide the rock. God wrote in the 10 commandments just like he did the first time. And he wrote on the tables, according to the first writing, the 10 commandments, which the Lord spake unto you in the mount out of the midst of the fire in the day of the assembly. And the Lord gave them unto me. And I turned myself and came down from the mount and put the tables in the ark which I had made. Who made it? Moses. You see anybody else there? He said, I made. Okay? And there they be as the Lord commanded me. Now I'll turn to Exodus 37. So Moses made an ark. He made an ark of wood to put the 2 tables of stone, which once they were done, he put them in there and brought them down from the mount. Exodus 37, verse 1. And Bezaleel, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, made the ark of shittim wood. 2 cubits and a half was the length of it, 1 cubit and a half the breadth of it, and 1 cubit and a half the height of it. And he overlaid it with pure gold within and without, and he made a crown of gold to it round about. Second ark. Now this is the one, this is what we call the main one actually. This is the one that winds up inside the tabernacle, the tent. This is the one that winds up in the temple, Solomon's temple, is this ark right here. This is the one that I believe is leading them through the wilderness. I cannot tell you what happened to the one that Moses made. But obviously they've taken the tables of stone, because we find out there are 3 things put in this ark. We know that there's the tables of stone. We know there's a pot of manna. By the way, we have a small pot of manna placed in this chest that does not rot, stink, or bred worms for 40 years or beyond that. And we have Aaron's rod that budded inside that ark. So let me... you can write down 1 Kings 8, 3 to 10, and this talks about the one that was in Solomon's temple. I was reading through it to see whether we need to. Let's see. He says, in verse 9, he says, there was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables of stone, so they must have been transferred from the one that Moses made, which Moses put there at Horeb. Now that's a troubling statement. Oh, he may have, once they built it, they were in Horeb, he would have put it in there. Okay. Then when the Lord made a covenant with the children of Israel, when they came out of the land of Egypt, it came to pass when the priests were come out of the holy place that the cloud filled the house of the Lord. So we do have two of them. The difference is that never says that Moses overlaid his with gold in and out. Doesn't say that. And the fact that two different people made two different of these boxes. You say, what's happened to it? I have no idea. I've got an idea what happened to this one, the one that's made of gold, but I have no idea what's happened to the one that Moses made. And I'm thinking that maybe the one they find. That maybe they find that one. I don't think they're going to find the other one. They may find the candlestick. They may find the table of showbread. I mean, not only is it made of that wood, it's kind of impervious to insects, but it is all overlaid with gold. The candlestick's pure gold. They may find these items. They may have already found these items. But I don't think they're going to find the ark. You say, why? Because it looks like it left. Look at Psalm 132, verse 8. Psalm 132, verse 8. He says, arise, O Lord, into thy rest, thou and the ark of thy strength. Well, if this thing went to where the Lord is, you might say it got raptured. Jeremiah 3:16, turn there. Jeremiah 3:16, and it shall come to pass, when ye be multiplied and increased in the land, in those days, saith the Lord, they shall say no more, the ark of the covenant of the Lord, neither shall it come to mind, neither shall they remember it, neither shall they visit it, neither shall that be done anymore. So it's almost like it disappears, and that's kind of it. Now that brings up something. I believe that Dr. Ruckman, and I believe, I'm not 100% positive, but I believe he teaches that before Nebuchadnezzar comes in, that the ark of God takes off. And I'll show you the verse that says it can fly. So it didn't have any reason why it couldn't leave. It could leave whenever it wanted. I say it. God could take it out of there whenever he wanted. What was I going to say? I was going to make a point. Anyway, it looks like at some point it disappeared. I don't know if it's the time of Nebuchadnezzar. It looks like it might be, because they took all the vessels, all the things of the temple, they took them. And those ended up getting returned, but if that ark is gone, I mean, listen, the last time the Philistines took that ark, it didn't work out too well with them. I can't imagine it working out any better with Nebuchadnezzar and some of those others if they had the ark. So why do I think it's gone? Look at Revelation 11, verse 19. Revelation 11, verse 19. And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament. And there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail. It looks like it's in heaven. So that leaves one wooden box still here on this earth that Moses made. So that begs the question to be asked. When the temple was rebuilt in the time of Ezra, and let's say they had recovered everything but the ark, you ever wonder how it's almost like God never said they were restored? They were in the land, but they were never. When Jesus shows up, man, they are a backslidden people. And it makes me wonder, they're without a king, without a teraphim, without a sacrifice. Why? I think the reason why they're without those things is because they have no ark. They have no ark in which to place the mercy seat. That it's at that point, it's a formality. They just made it a formality. That means even when Jesus shows up, there is no ark inside that temple. It's not there. And they need something there. Now, maybe they had the one that Moses made. I don't know. And they were making do with that. Maybe that's what they'll do this time. I don't know. Maybe they'll try to rebuild it. I don't think it'll be the same, but I think they'll try to. I want to see them, yeah. Yeah. I mean, imagine ripping that curtain. Listen, who would know? It's gone. Who? Only the high priest would know. Huh? Yeah. Yeah, don't go looking at Fort Knox. You won't find any probably. I mean, this thing's only 3.5 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet high. Not very big. Now, the three things that are put in there are mentioned in Hebrews 9:4. Talking about the ark, it says, which had the golden censer. I'm sorry, it says, talking about the temple itself, which had the golden censer, the ark of the covenant, overlaid round about with gold. That's the one that Bezalel made. Wherein was the golden pot that had manna, Aaron's rod that budded, and the tables of the covenant. So the one that's identified in Hebrews 9 is the one that Bezalel made because he overlaid the thing with gold. And they put those three things in there. Tables of the law, Aaron's rod that budded, and the golden pot of manna. What's interesting, and Heather brought this up, is the order in which everything was made. I'm giving it to you in a completely different order because I'm giving you the orders if you were walking to the tabernacle through the entrance of the court, and we're just going piece by piece. It's actually in reverse order. Or I don't know if it's exactly the reverse, but one thing is clear. The ark is the first item made. The Ark of the Covenant is the first item made. In a way, that could picture that God made the first move in that his presence was in the ark. So God made the first move there. And it shows you that that's who it's about. Sometimes you can, sometimes even church can get so cloudy with all the things that are going on and with how we do things that we can get out of mind about who it's actually about. And I don't want to get too far into that. I'll get into my message. But the ark was the first item made. The ark, a type of Christ, is the foundation for the mercy seat. The mercy seat it was made to be placed right on top of the ark. Listen, a seat exists in that temple for a reason. It's somebody's seat. Not only is the presence of God there, but it's actually a seat for somebody to sit in. And I can tell you that the next person that tries to sit into something like that is going to be the Antichrist. So that's the seat that belongs to Jesus Christ. And there's just something that about the ark. Moses was saved by an ark, wasn't he? Huh? Moses was saved by an ark. They put him in an ark of wood, right? That's what it says. It's an ark. Noah was saved by an ark. And Jesus is the foundation for God giving mercy to man. He is the ark. Okay? So you have those pictures there. And that ark saved Israel, didn't it? That wooden box saved them on many occasions. But you see how everything, it's like, it's not the thing, it's what the thing pictures. It always pictures a person. Everything we've looked at either pictures the Holy Spirit as a person of the Godhead or pictures Jesus Christ, or both, all the way through this. Even the wall pictures the righteousness of the law, but the curtain itself pictured the righteousness of Jesus Christ. I guess the wall would picture the righteousness of man. So the mercy seat lies between the law and God. No? Yeah, hold it. I don't know if I got that right or not. The mercy seat lies between the law and God. Huh? Yeah. Okay, the Father's presence was upon the mercy seat and between the cherubim. That's it. Numbers 7, verse 89. I got ahead of myself here. When Moses was gone into the tabernacle of the congregation to speak with him, then he heard the voice of one speaking unto him from off the mercy seat that was upon the ark of the testimony, from between the two cherubims, and he spake unto him. So, the mercy seat, what was under the Ten Commandments were in the ark. The mercy seat is here, and God is here. So the mercy seat lies between the law and God. Okay. This ark is present at several supernatural events. And remember, again, it's not the box doing it, okay? But the one who is making his presence known in the box. Look at Numbers chapter 10. This will show you where it flies. If you guys need to go right ahead. Numbers chapter 10, verse 35 and 36. And it came to pass when the ark set forward that Moses said, Rise up, Lord, let thine enemies be scattered, let them that hate thee flee before thee. And when it rested, he said, Return, O Lord, unto the many thousands of Israel. Now, I tried to teach this in the Bible Institute when I taught through the book of Numbers. And I had a room full of people that didn't believe what I was telling them. Like, you have a hard time believing that? I said, man, even Hollywood had the thing flying. If Hollywood has the ark flying, and I'm in a room full of Bible students, they didn't believe it. They thought they were just carrying it around. But we're going to find out here that there's a lot more going on with this thing. That's the reason why they brought it to the battle, not so it could sit there and look pretty. They wanted the thing to go out and fight their enemies for them. And sometimes it did. I say God did. And look at 1 Chronicles 14. 1 Chronicles 14, look at verse 12. Now you got to stay with this. He says verse 12 says, And when they had left their gods there, David gave a commandment, and they were burned with fire. And the Philistines yet again spread themselves abroad in the valley. Therefore David inquired again of God, and God said unto him, Go not after them, turn away from them, and come upon them over against the mulberry trees. And it shall be, when thou shalt hear a sound of going in the tops of the mulberry trees, then thou shalt go out to battle, for God is gone forth before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. He said, you're going to hear, it's like a helicopter going over your trees, your house. He says, you're going to hear this going over the mulberry trees. He said, who's that? That's God going before you to smite your enemies. Now, let's keep reading. David therefore did as God commanded him, and they smote the host of the Philistines from Gibeon even to Gazer. And the fame of David went out into the lands, and the Lord brought the fear of him upon all nations. Verse 1 of the next chapter. And David made him houses in the city of David, and prepared a place for the ark of God, and pitched for it a tent. Now, you really think that we just jump all the way to the ark of God, that's not the ark of God that went before them to the battle where God smote their enemies? Look at this in Joshua chapter 3. We're not done yet. Joshua chapter 3, starting at verse 11. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. Okay? Now, therefore, take you 12 men out of the tribes of Israel, out of every man a tribe, every tribe a man. It shall come to pass as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above. And you got this thing where the waters are heaping up. And as they that bear the ark were coming to the Jordan, the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for the Jordan overfloweth all her banks all the time of harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city, rose up upon a heap very far from the city of Adam, that is beside Zaratan. And those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off, and the people pressed over right against Jericho. And the priests that bear the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan, and all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until the people were passed clean over Jordan. But it said there that the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth passeth over before you into Jordan. So they're carrying the thing, and when the priests dip, when they're just, their feet are in the water, that thing starts parting, and that ark goes across. Yeah. Anyway, look at Joshua chapter 6. How many of you saw the Raiders of the Lost Ark? How many of you saw that? Okay. Yeah, the only part of that thing that even close was the last part of it, where it's in that warehouse and it takes off. I think did it take off in that warehouse and just burns everything to a fare thee well? No? Huh? Huh? It doesn't do anything in the warehouse? It's just sitting there? Okay, it destroys everything around them before it gets. Then they put it in a warehouse somewhere, probably where it's at right now. Imagine. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's over at the Air Force Base. I don't know. Anyway, huh? Can't tell you. I don't think you guys got it. Now you might have something else, but I don't think you got that. Joshua 6 verse 11. So the ark of the Lord compassed the city, going about at once, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. And it came to pass at the seventh time, when the priest blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, shout, for the Lord hath given you the city. Now you can say, well, it didn't say anything about it going. Well, I don't know, man. It's going. I think this ark is going around. It's scaring those people to death inside that city. They know about this ark. Why do you think that Hophni and Phinehas want to bring the ark to the battle? What did the Philistines say when they saw the ark? Oh, they got the ark! Fight, men, or we're done for. And they still whipped them because God wasn't in the thing. But they thought that ark, when they saw that ark, they were scared half to death too. Thing is, God was not at their beckoning call to just, it wasn't some like open the garage door with the garage door opener. God just wasn't going to do something for them because they wanted them to. 1 Samuel chapter 5, and we're going to finish here. This says, the Philistines took the ark of God and brought it from Ebenezer unto Ashdod. And when the Philistines took the ark of God, they brought it into the house of Dagon and set it by Dagon. And when they of Ashdod arose early on the morrow, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the earth before the ark of the Lord. And they took Dagon and set him in his place again. Notice he couldn't do it himself. Listen, when you got a God that can't stand up on his own 2 feet or defend himself, give it up. You don't have a God. You've got some kind of rock or something. They took Dagon and set him in his place again. And when they arose early on the morrow morning, behold, Dagon was fallen upon his face to the ground before the ark of the Lord, and the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hands were cut off upon the threshold. Only the stump of Dagon was left to him. I mean, that's funny. I mean, imagine these guys going in there, man. Here their God has been decapitated. hands, just a stump of him left. And they're like, what are you going to do with that? Step him, put him back up? Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to, get you some, super glue. Verse 5, therefore neither the priest of Dagon nor any that came to Dagon's house tread on the threshold of Dagon and Ashdod unto this day. I mean, you might as well give it up, man. I mean, this God, he can't do anything. He's a fake God. But the hand of the Lord was heavy upon them of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and smote them with emerods. Put an H in there for a breathing mark in Hebrew. Emerods, even Ashdod and the coast thereof. So this thing had some power, but it had power because God gave it. I would say God gave it power. God just did things through this thing, and so it's kind of hard sometimes keeping that straight in your mind. You start thinking about a thing. This thing did this. No, that thing didn't do anything. There is no power but of God. So there's one ark in heaven. There's a second one floating around somewhere that's made of wood. You say, well, it's probably rotted. I don't know. I don't think so. And it may be that's the ark that they're going to have, because definitely something sits where it shouldn't be sitting, according to Matthew chapter 24. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, that's something that's standing in the holy place. It's the Antichrist that goes in and sits down. I believe that's in 2 Thessalonians 2, where he sits down in God's seat, and that's the mercy seat. So what have they got that mercy seat on? They've got it on some kind of ark. Don't know if they just remake one or they find that one. Doesn't look like they're going to find the one that's overlaid with gold and that has the 3 testimonies inside. And just like the Lord, to not let him actually sit on the actual ark. Not only is he a fake God, but he's got a fake seat to sit on. Because evidently the ark is like, as far as God's concerned, things never even will come to mind. Why? The Lord Jesus Christ will be here. Why would you mess with an ark when the Messiah's here? So, all right. We'll talk more about this that goes along with the mercy seat next week. Any questions or comments? Anybody know where it is? I'm sorry? There's also another passage, I think, of the Old Testament, and I can't think where it's at. And it talks about him sitting in the seat of God, or I cannot think where it's at.